one thing that you did mention is how you actually spoke to people when you were on the beat, on the estate. You spoke to them in their own language, and I think that's something that I think police are being encouraged to move away from a little bit, or at least that's an unintentional consequence of how they're training them now, in that there's all of this sort of formal bureaucratic language, and you basically have to be a lawyer to understand what on earth they're on about. I mean, I don't spend a lot of my time outside of work talking to police officers. I'm quite well behaved, thank you very much. But I'm friends with a police officer, and the way I've seen him make arrests off duty, and the kind of switch between him when he's talking to me as an old school friend and him in his sort of professional mode.
Exercising his authority.
Yeah, it's very, very different. And I think it would actually be better if there was a greater similarity, because then it's far easier to see the person you're talking to as just another human being like you. And I think that it would get a lot more respect and perhaps even empathy from the people you're talking to.
Yeah, it's back in my day, to be a police officer now, you have to have a degree, right? So let's get that one out of the way. I'm not against people with degrees. As I said earlier, all my kids have got degrees, and they've been very successful having that level of education. So because I ain't got one, I'm not kicking off about it, right? But you've got to have a degree to be a cop. Now, I don't know how many or what the percentage of the public that have degrees in this country is, but let's just say it's 50%. So 50% have and 50% haven't. It might be 60-40, it doesn't matter. There's a percentage of people that don't have degrees in this country, excuse me. Now, the police come from society. Police is society. It polices with consent, and it represents society. Well, it doesn't anymore, does it? It only represents 50% of society, because 50% of the people can't apply to be one. Well, you can. I mean, I think on my first shift, on the first shift I joined at the first police station, say there was 10 coppers, right? Imagine that 10 coppers going out on a shift, you know, a couple of panda cars and some foot patrols. Remember them days when that happened? Right, say there was 10 coppers. I can think right off the top of my head now, Army, Navy, RAF, female RAF, Army. So there's 5 I can think right off the top of my head. They were ex-servicemen. Maybe had done 3 years, 6 years, 9 years in the services, or 12 years in my case. But they had those life skills. They had that military experience. And, you know, I'm not talking military, aggressive military. They were level-headed individuals. They were people that are able to diffuse situations through talking, not through throwing a rule book at them or just nicking them, because that's the default, in it, right? Well, you nicked. Oh God, you know. The amount of people I used to take to, like, you know, deal with, when you first start, you deal with people's domestics. I grew up in a house full of domestics, so it was easy for me to walk into a house where him and her are going at it, verbally and physically, and, you know, and rather than take him up to the nick, because it's always the bloke that got pulled away, right? It's always the bloke. And
I've actually spoke to a lady called Deborah Powney, who's an academic who studies domestic violence, and she was saying that actually the prosecution and the services available are disproportionately weighted, and actually quite often it's women that are the ones that initiate domestic violence and things like that. But the disparity between the two is that basically the default is to arrest the bloke, even if quite often he's the victim. I mean, of course, we live in a society where men aren't supposed to hit women, and I very much agree with that, by the way, just to clarify.
And me. No, seriously, because I mean, I saw my dad hit my mum. It's not a pretty thing to witness as a child.
No, but I think the presumption is that it's quite often the man, and there's a bit more of a complicated situation there. There's a series of events that have led up to the police officer stepping through that door. I think sometimes it's...
Not like unconscious bias, is it? Is it like that?
Well...
Thinking it's always going to be the man, isn't it?
I don't know whether it's an unconscious bias. It's always difficult to discern what's conscious and unconscious.
You know bigger words than me, I know that.
And I also studied
I know you did.
this stuff. I actually wrote my undergraduate dissertation on unconscious decision making. So I do know my stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
But
I
think
question it.
more often than not, it's more that it's someone's presumption. So that can be either conscious or unconscious. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's just what they're coming to expect out of a situation that they know very little of, isn't it? And they go in there with preconceptions, and quite often they may shape how they approach something. But then I'm saying this as someone who's, never been involved in any sort of policing. So this is only my sort of speculation as a psychologist rather than someone who's actually got on the ground experience. So I'm going to be a bit more hesitant with what I say.
Okay, so we were talking about being a police officer today, wasn't it? So so you got to have a degree, or you can come in with a degree, or you can come in and enter onto a 3-year course to get your degree, or, and this is the one that kills me, really kills me, you can come in to be a detective, right? You can come in and you're on the detective training course or whatever it is straight away with no...
That strikes me as a bit strange, because you'd think that you would have them have some on-the-ground experience of policing, wouldn't you, before they become a detective?
Well, you've heard my story about me as a cop and being on the council estate and me military skills and me, street smart kid and just dealing with stuff. If you're working on the hosiery department of Marks and Spencer's and you finish on the Friday and on Monday you're starting on this degree detective course. Well,
you have no frame of reference, do you?
Well, where's you getting your experience? What are you falling back on? What are you referencing? I don't know. I just don't know how that works.
I think I think it's an approach that is common in a lot of the world now, that you can be taught to be competent at something rather than just getting some experience and becoming good at it.
Yeah, see, I think a practical job like being a cop, I don't think that fits that. I don't think that...
Yeah, I very much agree. And I think there are lots of things that you can't be taught and you have to experience. And it is something that I think we as a society need to overcome, this belief that teaching is the be-all and end-all. And I think it is connected to that fact that lots of people go to university now and they occupy lots of the jobs that dictate how things are managed. And that's not necessarily ideal, because you have a specific set of people who have gone through specific experiences that shape how they view the world.
Yes.
And of course, when you're in education, you have the view that, well, I've been taught lots of things. Yes. I've spent a lot of money to hear these people who...
And read all these books.
Yeah.
And,
and therefore they presume that because that's worked for them to get them where they are, then that's going to work in every situation, when I think it's actually a case of experience trumps
I
being taught things.
Not only police, but there's lots of jobs out there that you can't go into cold. You've got to have a background in it. You can't just go in cold. And police, to me, because I know about it, is one of them. So, like that shift I initially spoke about, my very first shift, 10 officers, 5 ex-military. They're not getting ex-military people in now, right? So they're not getting these self-disciplined, able to work as a team member, able to work alone, take orders, understand orders, be forceful, all the things, wear a uniform. You're not getting those people now, because I wouldn't have come out of the army at 30 and thought, right, I'll go and do a 3-year degree course in the police. As well as doing my police job, I've got to do my graduate studies at the same time. It's not, they get days, a couple of days here and there to do their studying. It's not, they're doing an 8-hour shift and then having to come back and do a paper on something or other. They do get time off to do it. I'm still in touch with a couple of people that actually are involved in training recruits in different police forces, just through my network of former colleagues that I've worked with and what have you. So I get to hear all this and some of the stories, and I don't want to kick the calibre off these people coming in, right? I don't want to do that. But I think the recruiting process is wrong, right? And because that's wrong, they bring in the wrong people in. They're not weeding out the ones that shouldn't actually be police officers. Now, I read or heard, I think it was in a podcast, that when I joined the old bill, people joined for 30 years. It was a career. I had a good pension at the end of it, and it was a 30-year career. I brought my army pension in, which was 12 years, which brought me just under 10 years in the police pension scheme. So I had to do 20 years as a cop to get a good pension, and you know, have a good 20-year career in there. There are figures out there. There might not be exact these, but to get 30 police officers through their 2 years, they have to recruit 100 because of the wastage rate. Now, who's running that budget? Because somebody wants to get hold of them and give them another job, because that is a complete waste of taxpayers' money and local authority council tax money, because you pay in your council tax towards the police. And there's loads of that budget is getting wasted on training the wrong people, because they're not going to come out the other end.
Yeah, any private company that would run under those same principles would certainly not turn a profit had they copied the same methods there as the police.
I was having a conversation with an old colleague of mine, and I had to ask him to explain what he just said to me. He said there was a course of 32 on this corps, 32 recruits, and there's 12 left. I said, 12 have gone already? He said, no, we've got 12 left. All right, so 20 odd of them have gone. And this is like about a year in or something like that. You know, crazy. But so the recruiting, my humble opinion, the recruiting policy model ain't right. And the calibre, the sort of people are going for. I've heard stories about they didn't expect to work weekends. They don't. What do you mean I've got to work nights?
What, like it's an office job? You work 9 to 5 because that's when all the criminals are doing their business, is it?
And that, I'm not saying that for impact. That is been. There are actual events that have happened. I was talking to one of my GMP mates a couple of months ago, and they were doing an event, a concert, something like that, in the Manchester area, and these cops got given their areas of responsibility, you know, stand on this corner, stand here, stand there, whatever. And at the end of the night, there's a cop missing. I think, where's he? And it's like panic then, you know, somebody nicked him, has he been kidnapped? He'd gone home. He got bored and gone, he just walked off the job. And I'm not making that up, right? In fact, I got told that by a bloke that's still serving. He just went home. But one guy, his dad came in, or a girl, because he or she had to work a birthday. He wouldn't give the day off. Honest, I mean, So, you know, I started this by saying I don't want to knock the calibre of people applying for the police. We need police officers, but we're not getting the right section of society now.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.